Hi everyone, welcome to episode 188. It is Saturday, February 20th, and I want to welcome you to this place. Thank you so much for being here. If you're a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching and for giving us a try. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for continuing to watch the podcast and to be here in this place. Feel free to come on over to the Ravelry group, if you're interested in checking out more and being a little bit more active in the community. And thank you especially to our Patreon community, because you guys keep the shows, the lights, the production, everything on week after week, month after month. And I just really appreciate it. And I want to say a special thank you to all of you. So thank you so much. We've got the live chat. The live stream is every Saturday morning. For patrons of the community, everybody is invited. So even if you have $1 to spare every month, you will get the links on Friday afternoon for the Saturday morning live stream. And that's Pacific Standard Time. So whatever that time is, wherever you are. That is so exciting, Jess. So she just said that she got a Lendrum Saxony. That's amazing. Congratulations. There's a few people in our community actually who've gotten Saxonies recently. Miriam got one, and Leanne got one, and so did Mindy and Jess. That's awesome. It was a treat to myself after a particularly rough fall at work. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Morning to Julia. It's so good to see you back. We have to congratulate her on the birth of her new babe. I can't remember exactly when Julia gave birth, but her little one is still really little, and she hosts the Happy Knitting podcast. So welcome back to Julia. It's so good to see you here, and welcome to everybody else. I was trying to keep up with who all was in the chat, and I just completely lost track. You guys are so wonderful on Saturday mornings. I so look forward to seeing you all here. So thank you for taking the time out of your day and for spending some time with us here. We had book club yesterday at it was on yesterday on Friday. We're doing North and South right now by Elizabeth Gaskell. We were looking at, we're into the middle of the book now, so we're up to chapter 16, and we had just a wonderful gathering. It was so good to see everybody and to hear everybody's thoughts about the book. And I had to go early because I had to pick up the kids. Wah wah. So duty calls, but we had a lovely gathering, and I don't know what book we'll be doing next, but if you're interested in joining book club, we have a hashtag books channel on the Slack channel. It used to be hashtag books, but it was just too long and I wanted to simplify stuff, so I made it just hashtag books. And then our anti-racism book that we're looking at right now is The Empire of Cotton, and I actually finally was able to pick up my copy yesterday at the library because I have been waiting for it to come in, so I'm excited to look at that. So oh, baby is already 6 months. Oh my gosh, that's crazy, Julia. That is unbelievable. So Kathy is spending her Wensleydale. That's what she's been doing this year so far. She did Barbel did some gardening this time for gardening for the first time this year. That's awesome. Actually, I have to admit, this year I'm excited to get into the garden. Not quite yet, but probably into March and April. It's the first year that I've felt excited about gardening again. I used to be an avid gardener, and I just kind of lost my mojo for it, but I'm excited to do a couple of things in our backyard and kind of make it feel a bit more not so just grass. We look directly at the house next door, which is fine. They look after their house. They do a lovely job, but it's house. So we wanted to finally, now that we don't have dogs, we can actually put in some gardens again. So they don't need all of this space to run around. Good to see you, Eve, and Mars is here. North and South, there was a couple of miniseries. So there was a miniseries that was the miniseries that's part of the book is actually the BBC production, and it was a series of 4. And it was really, really well done. I've watched it a few times actually. If you're in Canada, and I think it's probably the same for the States, if you have BritBox on Amazon Prime, you can get all of the BBC stuff, and it was excellent. But there's also the North and South that's about the American South. So that's a series of books. So it gets a bit confusing, but we're doing the one that is Elizabeth Gaskell. So yeah. Thanks, Becca, for chiming in as well. So, in today's show, I have a basket full of yarn to share with you because I have been organizing my stash, which has been really, really good. I've gone through it, I've aired it out. I'm not quite done. I haven't done the garage yet, but I'm like 70% of the way there, and that's felt really good. And I found some stuff that was spins in progress, and so I wanted to chat about that stuff. And I also finished my radiant, I always want to call them radiate, my radiant towels. So I just wanted to show those to you really, really quickly. I've already gifted away 2 of them because they were a birthday present for one of my close friends. And then I'll just talk quickly about my Advent. I don't know if it's a blanket or a stole. I'm not really sure what I want to call it. Nora saw it after the podcast last week and she just flipped out. She was like, "Ooh," but I don't really want to let her have it because it'll get sucked up into her room and it'll get ruined. I know that sounds terrible, but she's just at that age where she loves things because of the color and the texture and the feel and the coziness, but she's not necessarily at the age where she's going to like look after things yet. Like maybe I'm not doing her enough service, but you guys know what I mean. Like she's 6, and so we're kind of at that like age where she wants things but she doesn't really understand sometimes the value of things. Anyways, my mom had an interesting my mom actually really loved it as well, so we'll see. I'll play with it a little bit, and I'm gonna keep it for now. And it makes, I think it was Dagmar had suggested folding it in half on the bias last week, and it kind of has turned it into this really great stole, so we will see. I'm actually not sure, Alicia, if the towels are in the show notes. I don't think that they are. I just scrolled through. I didn't add them to on and off the looms. So for finished weaving, I only have the Advent blanket. So no, you're right. I didn't throw them in. I will throw them in. I will update it because I have a Ravelry page as well with my set and everything in there for the weaving. So I will update it for you guys. Let me just catch up with chat. You guys are so fast. What's going on with Eve? Back from Annie with my neighbor. Oh, I hope everything's okay, Eve. BBC, yeah, the BBC. So Sarah says the BBC series was so good. I've actually like watched it like embarrassingly like 12 times. I just love it. Sometimes when I don't know what to watch, I'll put that on. That was actually why I was excited to do the book because I'd never read the book, which is kind of funny for me because I usually actually like watch stuff that I watch. I do tend to read the books, and I've read a lot of books from that era. North and South is set in about 1840, 1830. It was written in 1850, I think, 1859. So anyways, it's one of those things that it's unusual for me to have watched the show and not to have read the books. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Eve. Her neighbor had a concussion. Eve's neighbor is one of her really good friends too, so that's always hard. All right, why don't we get into the show, and I will talk about all of my spins because we've got lots to cover today. So you guys need to be able to see me. If if I put on the product camera, you need to actually have me talking to you as well. So I put it on product right away so that we could talk about things. So we'll do the loom in just a minute. I'll just move these off to the side for just a sec. So I've been organizing my stash, and Mike bought me a whole bunch of clear bins, and they're not massive. They're I don't have one right here to show you, but basically they fit about a dozen braids, so about 12 braids, and I can fit like a fleece and a half, like or not a fleece, but like Well, Diana will know what I'm talking about. We split a whole bunch of fleeces a couple of years ago, and I can fit two of those in the bin if I really squish them down. And so those are each a fifth of a full fleece. And some of them are bigger than others, but like my Cotswold and my Clun Forest, I was able to put into one bin together. So I'm up to, in going through my stash, I'm up to bin 8. And a lot of that fiber that I have is actually set aside for teaching, which sort of made me feel a little bit better because I was getting really overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I had. And then I realized that actually it's okay. Like I don't actually have as much as I thought that I did. However, I had a whole bunch of stuff that was like partially finished where I knew that the bobbins were kicking around, especially my Magic-Craft bobbins, but I hadn't kind of liberated the singles from the bobbins yet because this project was like right at the beginning. And it's funny when you come back to things later because as you progress in your spinning career, if you will, you become a faster spinner just by default of just being a better spinner in terms of not your yarns improve for sure, and the structure of your yarns and the integrity of your yarns improves, but also because your mechanics improve. Like you just get faster. And I worked on Wednesday, and I got uh I was sitting there chit-chatting with one of my friends, and she's not a maker, she's not a crafter. It all kind of boggles her mind a little bit, and she always is asking me questions about stuff. And as we were talking, when I'm talking to people, I like to make eye contact, and some people find that really intense over time, and so they tend to not make eye contact, and they'll look at what they're working on, or they'll look elsewhere. And it's intense to maintain eye contact for the whole time that you're talking. Like it's not healthy to just stare at people. But her and I were making eye contact. We're really good friends, and I was knitting on my shifty. And she, out of the blue, she said, we were talking about other things, and she said, out of the blue, she's like, I don't know how you can do that without watching. Like, how do you not watch your hands? And I said, honestly, I've been knitting for so long that like it's just in my muscle memory and in my hands. And she was like, oh, and I said, you just become better at it. And actually, Diane, you said it really well just now. You become more efficient. It's true. And I said to her, like, I know what my hands need to do, and I'm just knitting. There's nothing, I'm not doing anything, so I don't have to look at my hands. And she said, well, is it like that when you do your other stuff? And by other stuff, she means weaving and knitting and spinning. And I said, yeah, it gets like that. And so after I had that conversation with her, I was reflecting on the fact that that's probably actually why I can spin some of this stuff up so quickly sometimes is it's just in my hands. It's just muscle memory, and you'll get there. Like if you're at that point where you're still having to watch, as you spin and as you do your hands and you're finding that you're really having to watch, you can start to train your brain a little bit by just set your hands up and then glance away and draft back, and then set your hands up again and then look away and draft, and whatever draft you're doing, whether it's short forward or continuous back or short back, and you'll find over time you can start to do that more and more and more, and you don't have to look at your hands as much. And the less your eyes are involved, the more your brain goes onto autopilot, the faster you can do things because your eyes aren't getting in the way. I always think of it as like the visual gets in the way because your mind starts to thinking about what you're doing. And if you're thinking about what you're doing, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it's kind of like being angry about being angry. It's that type of thought process. It slows you down. So if you can start to not look, you can go a bit faster. I saw Diana, the teaching stash. It's so challenging, right? Like you've got this stuff that you've got set aside for teaching and for classes and whatnot, or for like working with people. But then there's also the fact that it's sitting there and you kind of can't do anything with it. So some of it I've actually set aside where if I end up using it for teaching, great. And if I end up spinning it, that's okay too. One of the things that I was doing when I was going through my stash and doing all of this is I have been putting it into a spreadsheet. So I've been using a Google sheet actually. Under Google Docs, you can do sheets in they're sort of in Excel, and I have been chronicling like bin 1 has this, bin 2 has this, bin 3 has this. And then if I'm looking for something, I can just search in my sheet and I know which bin it's in. And that might sound a bit too organized for some people. Like for some people, that's not what they want to do, and they don't want their stash that organized. But I'm kind of at the point where I need a little bit more organization because I don't know where stuff is. And I actually just bought another pound of Cheviot from Birkeland Brothers back in the spring. It was a while ago, but still. And I found a pound in my stash that I already had, but I thought that I had used it. And when I was spinning for my Cheviot sweater, that was my Gentle Morning. I'm not wearing it today, but my Gentle Morning, I ran out of fiber and I could have sworn I had more in my stash and I just couldn't find it no matter what I did. And sure enough, I had it. It was just in a different area. So it's time to get organized and it's time to get things sorted. So I don't have as much as I thought that I did though. So that was good. I thought that I had way more than I actually do. I still have a lot, but it wasn't as overwhelming as I thought. So let's talk about what I spun. I'll just catch up with you guys a little bit. Total muscle memory on spindles, but it depends on the fiber. Still have to watch myself sometimes on the wheel. I still watch myself on the wheel, actually. It's funny because recently I was spinning up something and I was actually really surprised at how much I was watching my hands. I was actually quite surprised. So I have my e-spinner on the back of the table here because I'm still working on my Romney. So I haven't talked about this for a couple of weeks because we talked about it ad nauseum for a couple of weeks, and then I just need to get the spinning done. So I actually have, I had showed you guys that this bobbin is done. And the reason why I stopped here and didn't fill it anymore was just because I just wanted a new bobbin. I had prepped a whole bunch of that fiber and I was just ready to move on to a new bobbin, to be honest. So my second bobbin is basically the same. It's almost basically the same in terms of the fill. The second one is basically the same. And I have a little bit more fiber to spin onto that bobbin, and then I'll be finished with that bobbin. And then I think what I'll do is rewind all of those singles and kind of start again. So I'll rewind them onto storage bobbins. I still have a ton of fiber to spin. And I keep thinking like, yeah, the bat is getting smaller, absolutely. But the mileage of the fiber is so long. So like I'll prep a piece of fluff to spin it. And then by the time I'm done, it's like, oh my gosh, like the bobbin has filled up a huge amount. So I think the yardage for this spin is going to be quite significant, even though it's going to be a 3-ply. So, which is good because I would like to get a sweater out of it. So, yeah, Sherry, definitely do a spreadsheet. It's, you can't find anything when it's not organized. And I was actually finding, like, I've been wanting to do this for years, do a spreadsheet of my stuff. And I just got I stopped all of my fiber clubs except for Long Way Homestead. Because I was just, I wanted to support them through the pandemic, a couple of people. So I did that. And now I'm kind of like, okay, I've got some hand painted fiber in my stash. I've got a good variety. Now it's time to stop them. So I just got the last one yesterday and it was kind of exciting. I was like, oh, here's some fiber. I get to put it into my sheet and decide which bin it goes into. It's kind of exciting. The really fun thing over the next few years will be emptying some of those bins. Like when I actually get to the bottom of a bin, that'll be really exciting. And like say bin number 2 gets to actually be like empty. That would be really cool. So these are core spun. I haven't done core spun for a long time. So this stuff is all old stash, okay? So this stuff has been in my stash for a very long time. These were hand carded, and I can actually zoom in a little bit here for you guys. These were actually hand carded roll eggs, and we gave away half of them on the show. Not these ones, but these ones. We gave these away on the show. And half of them, and I kept half of them. And I had always intended to core spin them. And so there were 2 sets, and I had divided each set in half and sent half away. And so Lori, these are from Disdarrow Ranch, and actually these are so old that it says here that she's in Barrier, BC, but she's actually in Tappan, BC now, which for those who aren't local to BC don't know where those places are, but One is in the Caribou and one is in the Okanagan. So for those who are local, you'll understand about that move. So one of them, which was only gray, gray Rolex, and she had done these off of a drum carter, was 100% Romney, and it was lovely to core spin. It was carded, so like the bat, there were some knots and some areas where the fibers had gotten all tangled together because her Romneys are quite long, but it was still really nice to spin. And then the other set of Rolex, which is where that gorgeous brown comes from. Do you guys see that in there? There's that really lovely brown. These ones were Corriedale, Romney, mohair, and brown alpaca. And it was in a 45, 30, 5, 20% blend. So 20% alpaca, 5% mohair, because she has mohair goats, 30% Romney, and 45% mohair. So really, really fun mix. Going through that doesn't actually make sense because that doesn't actually add up to 100%. That adds up to 105%. So it's probably a little bit less of one of them, but really fun. So I took some black Ultra Alpaca Light that I had in my stash that's just been hanging around for years. And I just core spun it. And it was super, super fast. I did it on my Lundrum Saxony, on my jumbo flyer. Sometimes people call it the plying head. And because this is skeined, there's places where you can see the black underneath, but when it's actually stretched out and when it's actually like some of the twist is taken out, I've already washed and set this yarn. But you can see how there are places where it was a little bit thin on the coverage, but I don't think it matters because it's still a natural shade. Like the black is still, I mean, obviously it's dyed because it's the yarn, but it kind of goes with the overall aesthetic of the yarn. It's very difficult to see. I did wash and set these in water. Like I actually submerged them in hot soapy water. And I scooched them around a little bit, and then I did thwack these, which you guys know I don't thwack very often, but I did thwack these. And there is still some active twist. You can see they still twist on themselves a couple of one time. There's still some like kinks and curls. You're going to get that with core spun because, you know, there's nothing to balance it out. There's nothing to balance out all of that twist unless you spiral ply it or two ply it with another fiber, and I didn't want to. So I will leave this the way that it is. I have knit a little bit with core spun, just like in little samples. Part of what I did with these two, great question, Eve. Part of what I did with these two actually was I wanted to see if I core spun them, rather than spinning them in the clockwise direction, in the Z direction, I always core spin that way. And I think it's because I spin singles that way. So I actually core spun S this time, so counterclockwise, both of these, because I wanted to see when I go to knit with them if it makes a difference. So this one is purple, I think it's purple merino, but it didn't really feel like merino. It might be Corriedale. Some of this was given away. I think it was Tour de Fleece that we gave some of this away. So somebody out there has some of this. I feel like it might be Eve, but it might be wrong. I think maybe Eve got one of the other ones. Anyways, this is it's Corriedale or it's merino. It doesn't really matter. And then the colorful bits, that yellow, the blue, the pink is bits of silk. And it was carded together. And actually, I do have a photo. I wonder if you guys would be so patient for just a moment. I will show you a photo of what this fiber looked like. And then you can see the difference in how the core spun is, because it actually transformed quite significantly. The core spun is really quite shockingly different. So this was let me just fit it to the screen. So this was the original fiber. You can see there's those that purple in there, and then there's all of those lengths of silk. It's probably Tussa silk, and that the purple, it was long enough that it felt like kind of more like Corriedale. It wasn't super soft like merino is, and the resulting yarn has a wee bit of a halo. So if I show this to you guys a little bit closer, you see how it has a little bit of a halo? And there's places where it was actually quite difficult to core spin the silk and to get it to come apart. So you can see here, like it kind of ended up with like a bit of texture in the core spinning. But then for the most part, it was pretty consistent. So I did the same with this. I core spun it in the S direction. Because I tend to the reason why I did that, for those who are newer to the podcast and don't kind of know why I did that, when I knit with Z finished yarns, I tend to unknit them. I tend to untwist them. It's just something that I do with my hands. Sorry, I just moved the table. So I thought if I core spun these in the S direction, and I'll knit with them and I'll see what happens. So I don't know if I'll use them together. I have other core spun yarns in my stash that I would like to. I actually have some green that was, Diana, you'll laugh. There was a bat that her and I made when I was first coming back to spinning in 2014, and it was this gorgeous green, all these greens that were out of my stash that I had. And we made a little bat, and I core spun up that green yarn, and I was actually thinking about using it in contrast with this to make it go a bit further and just trying to knit a toque just to see what would happen, just kind of a bit of an experiment. Or I was thinking about doing a crocheted toque, because I had done a crocheted toque a couple of years ago now. It was when James was in kindergarten, and I wear that thing all the time. And I put a gorgeous gray pom-pom on it, and it's in this gorgeous green Tweedy Donegal yarn that I had in my stash. And I made one for his teacher that year as well, actually. And I was thinking if I could combine this with another yarn, I actually would maybe have enough to make another one of those toques, but do some striping before it goes into the brim. Yeah, it seems like so long ago. Hey, Diana. I mean, we're talking about like 7 years ago. It's crazy. Because Nora's turning 7 next month. And she's very excited that it's almost March and that she's almost going to be 7. There was a couple of questions. So is this spun yarn a single? Do you mean the core spun yarn, Samantha, or do you mean the yarn that I used for the core? Because I can answer that for sure. The surface, thank you for answering, Becca. So the surface of core spun is delicate like a singles, but it has the solidity of a core, so it doesn't quite behave the same way. That's a great way of saying that, actually, Becca. So the outside of core spun, if you manhandle the outside of it a bit too much and you're really rough with it, I did wash these in hot soapy water, so they won't be too bad, but the surface of core spun can sometimes be a bit delicate and it can get really wrecked, and it can actually start to lift away from the singles. And it's one of the reasons why you'll sometimes see core spun that's so overspun, that it's so kinky and curly that it's really difficult to manage. And a lot of that is because people have put so much twist in it to try to compensate. And as they're core spinning and as they're wrapping the underlying yarn, it just gets more and more and more and more twist in it. And that's actually one of the reasons why I use my jumbo flyer when I'm doing this. That's one of the only reasons why I keep that head on my Lendrum, is for the jumbo flyer, for things like core spinning, beehives, that kind of stuff, textured spinning, where you want something slow and steady. So I use the highest ratio still, 9:1, and I tend to just take my time. And if I find the twist is adding up too much and it's just getting too significant, I'll just let it dissipate down the core yarn, and it means that the core yarn gets a bit tangled, but you can untwist it later. So yeah, the roving for this one was gorgeous. It was really, really pretty. Yeah, it was very shiny. Would core spun be better to weave with? So a lot of people do keep these textured yarns to weave with. That's why they learn to spin them and why they learn to use them. And actually, if you guys are looking for some textured weaving where these yarns are used regularly, I would highly recommend that you check out Imoni Hopkins of Hopkins Fiber Studio. Imoni does a ton of this kind of stuff. She was on Woolen Spinning Radio last year chatting with me about her process, and she's very, very active and does a lot of this kind of stuff in the greater fiber arts community. So definitely a shout out to her for working with these yarns. So I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit, and I'll move these off to the side. Actually, one of the things that I really like core spun for is tapestry weaving. When you see people doing tapestry weaving that is very textured, These yarns are just gorgeous in them, and so I would highly recommend that you check that out if you haven't seen textured tapestry weaving. It's really amazing. Zan has a really interesting comment about Irish tension. One of the really common reasons that people keep their Irish tension wheels over time, or why people buy Irish tension wheels, so like the Alouette S10 is a great example, is for doing textured yarns, because the uptake tends to be quite firm, but you tend to get those really big ratios. So I think it's the Ashford Country, what's that wheel called? It's got the really massive bobbins. A lot of the Spinolution wheels are really super popular for this kind of spinning, because you get those big bobbins, because that's one of the things, is that the bobbins fill up so quickly. So you kind of need you need something where you've got bigger bobbins and you can fill them up. This is a really just one of those skeins of yarn that kind of ended up happening by accident. This is the little 2-ply sample that was the end of the bobbins. So this cute little 2-ply sample, I'm going to keep this. Oh, sorry, the camera doesn't like me moving my hands too much. It's just really lovely. It's amazing in the little 2-ply sample how much of it actually like matched up. So you've got these areas where the green and the blue and the gorgeous purpley blue, it all matched up in the little skein. So the 2-ply would have been really beautiful. And you can see that poof. The bulk of this is amazing. So when I squish it down, it just pops right back. It's just really, really gorgeous fiber. So this is, I'm going to see if you guys can guess, the Country Spinner. Thank you, Eve. The Country Spinner by Ashford is a super popular textured yarns, art yarns type of wheel to spin on. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think this is? So the swoosh factor and the poof factor on this is unbelievable. I spun these singles quite finely. I wanted to end up with a 14 wraps per inch yarn. And remember, I was planning after I had already started this project, because I found the bobbins in my stash from when I had already started it. And I actually have video of me spinning this and of me spinning the singles, and I didn't get a chance to edit it. So I'm really sorry about that, because I wanted to share with you how far apart my hands were, and I just didn't get it done. So if you guys are okay with waiting until next week to see how I spun this, we will do it. So it's not Targhee. I knew you guys would say Targhee. It's not Targhee. And I think that's why I was so... and this was in my stash for years. So let me give you a hint. It's not Rambo, because Rambo wasn't as available. This was in my stash for about 15, no. I bought it probably in 2007, 2008 from Ancient Arts Fiber Arts, when she was still when it was still Carolyn, and when it was still, when they were still dyeing fiber. It's Polworth. Well done. Well done, Katie and Maggie. It's Polworth. So this was like pre-Targhee, pre-Rambo. This was when Polworth was kind of new on the scene. And I am knitting a Polworth sweater right now, which we'll talk about in a sec as a spin-off to this. This was sitting on bobbins for years. So it had sat in my stash for about, the braid had sat in my stash for about 10 years. And then I pulled it out in like 2017, 2018, after I got my Magicraft wheel, and I started spinning it. And honestly, I probably spun on it like 5 minutes one evening. And then I took the bobbin off and I put it with the braid in the bag, and I didn't look at it again. So it's been sitting in my stash for all this time, and I knew that there was a bobbin caught up with a spin in my stash, but that was kind of the end of it. So this was bought at a, like it was Fibers West, like eons ago. Or maybe it wasn't Fibers West, because it was somewhere. Anyways, it's old. It's been in my stash for a long time. The Polworth, when I pulled it out to finish it, so I found it when I was going through my stash. That's how I found it. And I pulled it out, and I just thought, you know what? I just need to finish this. It's not quite 4 ounces, because it was 100 grams, so it's 3.5 ounces. And I just thought to myself, I just need to get this done. Like I just need to finish it and be done with it. So I didn't even break it up into three for three separate bobbins. I don't know what my original plan was. I don't know if my original plan was to 2-ply. I don't know if it was to 3-ply. I have no idea. So basically what I did was I took the braid and I just stripped it down a whole bunch of times, made a whole bunch of little nests. I didn't pre-draft. I didn't pre-attenuate. I did nothing. I just stripped it down, made some shorter. I broke the braid horizontally. I broke it vertically. I just made smaller bits so that I could spin really, really fast. And I had this done in about 4 hours. So it was about a couple of hours of spinning last Saturday and then a couple hours of spinning on Sunday. And I applied it up on Monday. It was a 3-ply and it's random. I just broke the braid up and it's got lots and lots of twist. And then when I was plying it, I put in tons and tons of twist. It was curly Q. And after washing, it hangs just beautifully straight. It poofed right up. I spun the singles to about 30 wraps per inch for a finished yarn of 14 wraps per inch. So we're going to get into a little bit of technical stuff for just a minute. So when you're spinning for a 3-ply, you want to spin your wraps per inch double what you want your finished yarn to be. So if you want your finished yarn to be 14 wraps per inch, you need to spin to about 28 wraps per inch. If you want a finished yarn of 10 wraps per inch, you need to spin to 20 wraps per inch for a 3-ply. The thing is that it's Polworth. And so like Polworth, Targhee, Rambo was one of the other ones that you guys threw out. The bounce and the sproing post washing is going to be just unbelievable. And this is 100% Polworth. So it's going to really poof. I mean, look at this 2-ply. Like it is so round for a 2-ply. Like that's really quite round. So I spun quite tightly. I put a lot of twist into this for the singles, which you can't even tell now that it's finished. And I spun to about 30 wraps per inch. I didn't check very often. I just kind of started going. And then sure enough, the finished yarn is about 14, 13 wraps per inch because it just went and poofed right back to life. It's not a ton of yardage, but it would be enough for color work in the yoke of a sweater for sure. So this is called Scottish Mist. Ancient Arts is located in Alberta, and they actually are not doing any fiber anymore. They only do yarn. So this was like kind of gold when I got it. I love their colors, and I wish they would do more fiber. The other thing, and this was why I wanted to show you guys the picture of me or the video of me spinning it, is it was a little bit fulled. The fiber was a bit fulled, and actually after I started spinning it and got it back on my wheel last Saturday, I thought to myself, is this worth it? Maybe I should just compost it. And then I thought, well, I'll just keep spinning and I'll see how it goes. Anyways, I moved my hands really far apart. And I did continuous back, but I kept my hands like really far apart. I'll show you the video next week, and or maybe I'll post it separately and just post a little video for you guys on the Slack channel or something. It really helped to keep me spinning. It also meant that the singles were quite fine. So because of that, because I was pulling such a little bit, because it was fulled and the fiber was so compacted, even breaking it apart and stuff, it was still really super compacted. So yeah, sort of a lesson in coming back to something after many, many years of not spinning it, knowing it was in my stash, liberating a couple of bobbins, but also just random spinning and how these braids can come out so beautifully. Jane Stafford on her online weaving school, she talks a lot about like zingers when she's talking about color management. And I think this is one of those braids where that is really the case, because this is actually overall very analogous. It's all of these gorgeous greeny yellows. And actually the crazy thing is that it's registering on the live stream, because I'm looking at the live stream right now. It's actually registering on the live stream really accurately. That is pretty much the colors, which is pretty incredible. So it's this gorgeous kind of greeny color. I'll zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see what I mean. It's this gorgeous sort of greeny color. There's these gorgeous blues in there. And then you get this hit of teal, which I don't know how that lined up. That was just amazing. But then the zinger is this purpley red. And that's the complement. And it just makes the braid sing. It just brings interest. It creates some barber pulling, and you can see in here where the 3-ply is really evident that it's a 3-ply. It just makes it more interesting. So if you were to use this in the yoke of a sweater, for example, or if you were to use a braid like this in, say, a sweater like the Shifty, it would just make it more interesting. So if you had 3 or 4 braids from the same dyer with these same colors, it would really coordinate well and work really, really well. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Fold. Yeah, great question, Victoria. So fold is where, yeah, thank you, Eve. It's slightly felted. So part of that was because the fiber was really, it's 100% Polworth. So there's 100% wool, Polworth felts. And also, it had been in my stash for so long. So the longer these braids are in your stash for, the longer that they are compacted and braided and cinched down, though the more challenge you're going to have with them. So just be aware that you don't want to leave your braids in your stash all compacted down for a really long time. You basically want, I love what Diana talks about when we have our great conversations about yarn and spinning, and we haven't had an in-person coffee chat for a long time, but she talks a lot about like a living, breathing stash. And that means, what that means, and she can even speak to it a little bit more in the live chat. What that means is, sorry, I've got hair in my eye. What that means is this idea of a stash that's constantly turning over, that we're not keeping things like this for 14 plus years, that we're spinning it up and that we're using it. And you know, I've kind of gotten to the point, I'm actually at the point where no promises for those who are watching who want hand spun but are not at that point where they can make the yarns that they want to use and are looking to buy some. I'm actually at the point where I might start spinning up stuff like this, and I might actually put it in my Etsy shop, because I can't knit with all the things. And so, yeah, I think it's just this idea of a living, breathing stash, and a stash that's turning over. And if you notice, fiber clubs like Nest and Hello Yarn, Spunky Eclectic, they don't braid their fiber clubs. Part of that is the labor involved in braiding, but part of that is it's actually better for the fiber not to be braided. So I actually do recommend unbraiding, Jackie. Do I unbraid everything? No. And superwash, I don't bother. But definitely unbraid some of your 100% wool blends and fibers for sure, and just gently wrap them up, put them in a Ziploc bag, take the air out if you can. When that air is taken on, when you let air in there again, it'll poof right back up, but at least it's not compacted into a braid. I've spun fine wools but never had them poof. What am I doing wrong? So let's talk about that really quickly. That's a great question, Eve. So usually when people don't have their fine wools really poof nicely, it's actually a bit counterintuitive. You would think that if you put in too much, like lots of twist, that it wouldn't poof, but it's actually the opposite. These fine wools, they want to be spun quite tightly, and they have a lot of crimps per inch. So like Polworth is 8 crimps per inch on average in its fleece. So you're talking about a lot of twist. That's a lot. 8 twists per inch, eight crimps per inch. So usually when I see fine wools that don't poof and they don't really come back to life in the washing process, they just don't have enough twist in them. So this little 2-ply sample, I'll put this under the camera. Let me scooch over a little bit so that I can do this properly. This little 2-ply sample could actually probably have even a little bit more twist in it, because you see this. Then the camera will focus on me. If I add a little bit more twist here, this in the washing, it'll poof up and it'll come up to life. And so there's parts in here that were a little bit higher twist. 2-plies are hard when you're dealing with the end of the bobbin, because you're dealing with the ends, and I don't find the ends of my spinning is quite as consistent, either end, whether it's the beginning or the end. but you see how like this area here has a little bit more twist, and look at how bouncy and springy that is. And if you put even a little bit more in, it's going to become even a little bit more bouncy and springy. If you add too much twist, it's going to cinch it down. It's going to cinch it right down, and it'll be curly and it won't be able to balance, but it'll be like over twisted, and it'll lose its life again. But if you're not seeing your fine wools really bounce up and spring up to life, it's probably because you don't have enough twist. And there is a line, like you want to have enough twist that it's bouncy and springy and has room to poof up and to come into those areas and into that and to fill those air pockets and to bounce and spring. Like these fibers want to fill in the space around them. But if they're underspun and underplied, they're not gonna come to life. They're just gonna kind of be a bit limp. So you need to find that balance between underspun and underplied and overspun and overplied. There's a happy medium, and it's quite a large medium. Like it's quite a big. They're very forgiving, very forgiving. All right. Gotland. Yes, Martha, that's what we're talking about next. And actually, I have the sun in my eyes. So if you guys are okay to drool over this for just a second, I'm going to close the blinds. It was overcast, and I didn't think that the sun would come out. And Mike and I had gone around and opened up all the blinds this morning, just to get some light into the house. And all of a sudden the sun came out, which is lovely. It isn't supposed to rain today, so that's just a lovely treat. I wanted to say thank you to everybody who has sent locks in the mail. I've been getting all of this really fun mail the last couple of weeks, and I just really appreciate it. It's for a workshop that I am developing for Sweet Georgia, and I have put out a call on the Slack channel for locks from people. So I have enough now. Diane is sending me a couple, and I just got some from Elizabeth, so thank you so much. I think I have enough for what I'm working on for Sweet Georgia, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, you guys. It was very generous, and I loved all the little notes, so thank you so much. This is Gotland. You were right, Martha. So this is my thread box. This is from December of 2020. So this was one of the fiber clubs that I was in for the last few months. And unfortunately, I've canceled it now just because, like I said, I need to get on top of my spinning and what I have. This is all spindle spun. So I've been breaking this up and putting it in my little bag. And this is the third singles that I need to spin. And then I have the last quarter. I divided the braid up into quarters, and I talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, but basically I've been spindle spinning it, and the idea is that it's going to be the yoke of the, I think it's called the Aurelius. Is that how you say it? Aurelius? This is terrible, I can't remember. Hannah very kindly sent me the pattern. I'm super excited about it. It's the Aurelius sweater. It's by Jennifer Steinglass. I've actually never knit one of her patterns before. I'm kind of excited. This is the link to the pattern for those who are on Ravelry. And I've been taking the little fluffs of fiber, and I've been breaking down the bigger fluffs. That's all I can think of right now. Marsh, you've ruined me when it comes to fiber. All I can think now is fluff. So I've been breaking down the braid and just pre-drafting the Gotland just a little bit, just to kind of air it out a little bit. It's not compacted at all. It's beautifully dyed, I have to say. Gotland is a long wool. It's a Swedish breed. It's descended from an ancient breed of sheep from the Gotland Island, and they were actually crossbred. Oh, I don't want to mess this up. I was reading about them yesterday, and it was just fascinating. They were crossbred with, is it Lincolns? Let me just look it up. I don't want to give misinformation. They were crossbred. The modern Gotland, what we have as Gotland, were crossed with Romanovs and Karakuls in the 1920s and the 1930s, and there are still, the primitive Gotland breed is still resides on Gotland today, but they're incredibly rare, and they are close to extinction. But Gotland is gray. So you get these gorgeous colors on that gray fleece. I'll show it to you here. So really, really rich colors. And we did Gotland in the breeding color studies a few years ago, and Katrina had carded it up, and we were looking at split complements. It was one of our first studies, and people found spinning Gotland really challenging. A lot of people reflected that it was easy to overspin. They were finding that they were kind of making rope. I think quite a few people ended up using Gotland for socks. And I loved it because I love the natural shades and I love the long wools. I love the halo that you get on them. Anything long wool, I love. And then after I've spun them, I'm like, okay, now what do I do with it? Because I don't love that with the long wools, you get that like the kind of the curly, kinky. Greta Lynn and I were talking about it a couple weeks ago. You get that kind of curly, kinky stitch definition in your knitted fabric, and I don't love that. So it's kind of hard because I love them so much and I love the yarns, but I don't love the finished knitted projects. However, when they're spun with lots of air and they're spun very gently, and they've got that gorgeous halo, and then you put this with natural gray Gotland, which is my plan for the color work, you get that real watercolor effect in the color work. So I'm going with it. So I'm just hoping that I have enough yardage, because the pattern calls for about just shy of 200 yards of yarn, but there's quite a few people who've knit it who've said, and I'm not going to do the color work on the cuffs or the hem because I just don't have enough. But I think that if I do just the yoke, a lot of people have said in their comments on Ravelry that they only used like 130 yards of yarn. So I'm hoping that that's what that I'll have enough, because I don't actually know how many yards this is. I don't want to take the time to calculate it, but I'm sure it's only like 30 or 40 yards. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So 50. So I've got 75 yards here. Who knew? Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. So I'm going to have more than enough yardage. Thank you for bearing with me while I dealt with my anxiety about not having enough yardage. So I'm spindle spinning this. That was the other thing I wanted to say, was I'm spindle spinning this. So this is on my Turtle Made spindle. And this is my sweater spin for the year on spindles. So I really wanted to do a sweater spin this year that was completely on spindles. So I'm using my Turtle Made spindle. This is my absolute most favorite one. It was the first one I ever got. And it's still to this day, I've got tons and tons and tons of them because I have like Diana, I have a fleet of them for teaching for classes. And this is my baby, my one that I'll always have. This has gone to the parks. It's been dumped in mud. It's been on tons of walks and hikes. This one is like mine. I don't even take it when I'm teaching. When I used to teach in person, I never took that one because I was always like, what if somebody takes it? Isn't that terrible? A 5-person would never take somebody's things, but you never know. What if it got lost? Oh, thank you, Mars, for helping me with the pronunciation of it. So Aurealis. Oh, okay. Aurealis. Yeah, that makes sense. I have not woven with my Gotland yarns, actually, Becca. That's a great question. However, I did do that big weaving with Massam, which was one of our other breeding color studies, which you guys know. And that was really challenging because I was doing it on a rigid heddle and it was so fuzzy, and I needed more twist. So that was the big takeaway with that, was I needed to put a lot more twist into that blanket. The funny thing is, it's actually over there on one of our chairs. Whenever I need something to cuddle under, I go to my Massam blanket. I always grab it. So it's been one of those lovely happy accidents. Yes, ply angle, much, much lower than usual. Great question, Zan. So this ply angle is about 25 degrees, very, very low, and same with the spinning on the spindle. That's why the spindles work so well for Gotland, particularly the bottom, the drop spindles. Not the supported spindles, but like drop spindles work really well, especially if you have a slightly heavier one, because you don't need a lot of twist to hold this fiber together. Gotland is very, very wavy. It's very crimpy. It's not crimpy. It's very wavy and curly. It's the opposite of Polworth. You're talking, very, very low twist angle. So I don't want to drop this in my coffee. Let's not do that. So as I add the twist to this, can add like one full twist, and then I add another twist, it's already twist locked. That's 2 twists, that's it. So very, very low twist, and I love the weight of this on the spindles. I find it really helps me to keep my yarns low twist. I could spin this on my Lundrum DT, my upright, on my jumbo flyer, but I prefer, I really wanted to do a spindle spin this year for a sweater. Diana's doing one too, actually. If anybody else wants to join in, please do. And this just fit the bill. Yeah, spindle yarn spun for a sweater, absolutely. So Diana's doing one, and then I think I might be wrong, but Mars, were you going to do one? I think you were talking about it. Charlotte, we all understand yardage anxiety. Thank you for your kindness. Do you think it may be easier to not overspin something on your spindles? Yeah, absolutely, Judy. Especially, but your spindles, this is for me personally, I find the spindle has to be heavy. My really light Bosworth spindles that are like 17, 18 grams, they're too light. And they spin too fast and they put too much twist in. And so I find when I'm spinning stuff like Gotland, they end up back spinning. So that's no fun. So a heavier one, and actually my turtle-made Turkish spindles, what I really like about spinning the Gotland on them is they don't tend to backspin. So when they start to slow down and stop spinning, I know that that's the other thing. You know how when you're spindle spinning, many of us tend to kind of run our hands up and down to feel the singles before we wind them off. And you kind of get that feel as you're spindle spinning to kind of, feel your singles. And it's like, yeah, that's about right. And then you load it onto your cop. I didn't do that with this because it would rough up the singles a huge amount, and this is already going to have a lot of halo. So I didn't do that. I just pulled on either end to make sure it was twist locked, added a little bit more twist, and then I wrapped it onto the cop. And I am plying on the spindle as well, Shauna. Yes, good question. So I did this on my my steampunk spindle, which is a really great plying spindle. And actually I don't have any photos because I just did it. So yeah. My challenge is to actually knit up the sweater quantity of spindle. Is fun. You can do it, Becca. You can totally do it. Kelly agrees. Yeah, it's middle size. Great question, Sarah. So she's wondering what size your spindle is. So the turtle-made Turkish spindles, I'm using just the standard, and they're about 35 grams, which I find for this is absolutely perfect. And look at this drape. I was going to show this to you guys and I forgot. Like, look at how it just hangs. It's just got this lovely drape, It's just beautiful. And actually, when I took it off of the spindle, when I skeined it, it did twist on itself once or twice. And so it balanced out really nicely. Sorry, the badge is in the way, so I'll just move over a little bit. So, and I like how the colors Barbara pulled a little bit. I think it'll really work well for the Aurelius. So, yeah. They fight the twist and they will push the spindle back easily. Yes, absolutely, Becca. Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is Breed and Color Study. This is my first skein of Shetland that I have spun. I'm not going to talk about this too much because this is going to be content coming up in May and June where I reflect on my study and talk about it. But this is a 3-ply fractal, and it's one single of each. So it's one single of the white Shetland, one single of the gray and 1 single of the Murret. So the Murret was spun end to end, which is why there's so much black. It's because it went on and on and on and on. Almost all of the back side of the skein is black for at least one, if not two, of the singles. The front of the skein, just because of how it got wound off on the skein winder, has a little bit less black. And then this is where the beginning and the end of the skein was, where there's not the black. You're getting into like the natural shades, and you can see all of the white contrast because there was the white that was the undyed natural. And this is actually a place where the undyed natural met up with the gray. And then you've got against the black. So all those neutrals, 2 naturals and one neutral, which is kind of cool. So the Murret I spun end to end. The gray I divided twice. And the white I divided 6 times. So it was a 6, 2, and then the 1 that was spun end to end. So 3-ply fractal, a huge amount of yardage. I don't think I wrote it down because I need to figure out what my loss was and how, like, what my finished yardage is. And this is about 150 grams because it was half of each braid. So 150 grams worth of spinning. And this is going to end up being something. I don't know what yet, but it will end up being something. This is more than enough yardage actually for the contrast color in the Spark cardigan, the one that Nicole just finished. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, that's hilarious, Kelly. She switched the Murret with the gray, but she did exactly the same thing. That's awesome. Yeah, I loved spinning the Murret end to end. It was a really, I found that spin really enjoyable. That was the first bobbin of the 3. And I actually found the white was my least enjoyable. I found having to switch, and I spun that one second, and then I did the gray last. And of the 3, I actually enjoyed spinning the Murret the best. And I think it's just because I love those warm colors. I just love Murret so much. It's that reddy, that gorgeous reddy brown color. For those who don't know what Murret is, if you look in this here, it's the brown in that singles. It's that natural browny red color. You can see it in here too. It's that brown color that's in there. I just love that color. So first skein done. So much fun. Thank you so much, you guys. Yeah. That's a great question, Wendy. Did I find a difference in softness between the 3? I didn't. I didn't at all, actually. I really, overall, this skein feels like it's next to the skin for me. This is really quite soft. I don't know what the microns is of this. I would have to ask, Katrina, but I've been really surprised at how soft the Shetland is. This really came out quite soft, and I spun it on my Lendrum Saxony, and, I was really careful about how much twist I put into it. And at one point I actually was underspinning it, and I had to go back a little bit because it kept breaking up. But I'm really surprised at how airy, and this, even though I spun this worsted, so I did a continuous back, I'm actually surprised at how airy this is and how lofty this is. And when I was spinning it, the Shetland didn't feel to me like it was like a traditional comb top. It kind of almost felt like a little bit more, it wasn't woolen and it wasn't carded, but it sort of felt more like a little bit of like a roving kind of, rather than like traditional comb top where everything is perfect. And so this ended up just, making me feel like it was very airy, easy to spin. It just flew. This went really, really quickly. Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Thank you for all the kind words. So that is my basket full of yarn. Julia, you're so funny. You guys need to stop inspiring me to do all the things I don't have time for. That's how I felt when my kids were little. I still feel that way because it changes, you know, like every stage is different, and it really is true. Like every stage is different. Now the kids aren't so physically dependent. But they're emotionally more needy. They need more from us. They need us to talk to them. And we're at that age right now where James is obsessed with Minecraft. So that's super fun. And, you know, he's tired. Like his days are full, and he's active and he's busy. So it just changes, and Nora's a fighter, so everything is push back, push back, push back, and she's so sure of herself, and she's so like dug in and invested in her like, her sort of opinion, and you sort of have to like circumnavigate her a little bit and sort of figure out like how to get her to sort of see a different side, and it's just a different type of exhaustion. I did find when we were home learning back in the spring, I put us on a really, really strict schedule where we started schoolwork as soon as we were done breakfast. When breakfast is usually done in our house by about 7:30. So the kids were working and doing their schoolwork by about 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, because James would eat his breakfast and watch his morning meeting. And because there's always a morning check-in. And just to ground their day, which I actually loved. It gave us something where there was like this routine of where we started. And then they were every day, no matter what, we were done at 1:00. It didn't matter how the day was going. It didn't matter what we were doing. Unless James was in the middle of something and wanted to finish it, no matter what, we were done at 1:00. And we had lunch at 12. So they only had to come back for like 20 minutes to finish up whatever they wanted to finish. So technically we were done at noon. So because of that, when we were doing all that home learning and stuff, we were home every day, but they had the afternoons to play. And I actually found I got a lot done. You guys remember how many sweaters I knit? Because I was sitting at the kitchen table, but then in the afternoon I would spin and we would go outside. So it's amazing as the kids get a bit older how much you really can do. These are my Radiant towels. This was completely a total hack from, I just copied the pattern exactly from this School of Sweet Georgia. And they're gradient. So they go from the blue across into the pink and back out to the blue. They're a little bit small. These are not really tea towel sized for me. Like these are kind of more like a hand towel. And so that's what I'm going to write on the notes for the teachers, that these are hand towels. I'm not going to write tea towels. So there's 2 for each. I gave 2 to one of my best friends. There's a couple of skips, which you can see, that were just tensioning issues on my compact. I don't know what it is about my compact. The tensioning is weird. It just doesn't tension really well. I don't know if it's me and something that I'm doing. I don't know if we're winding on the warp tight enough. Like if anybody has a compact, and could like just chime in, whether it's in the comments down below here on YouTube or elsewhere on the Slack channel. I've talked to Glenda about the compact a little bit, and she shared with me what happened when they put the TechSolve heddles on, and I knew somebody had had a negative experience. So thank you, Glenda, for chiming in. But yeah, the compact just doesn't, there's something about the tensioning. So anyways, I just have to go back and fix those. So I thought what I would do actually is one evening, I'll like during a Zoom meeting or something, I'll sit and fix them, because there's like kind of a couple on every towel. And then I just hem them with a zigzag stitch, just so that it would be mostly invisible. And I turned the hem about 1/2 inch. So it's folded back 1.5 inches and then folded again for a lovely hem. So that was it. I finished them off. So there's 2 for each of the kids' teachers in June. Hopefully none of them watch this. I'm kidding, they don't. And then there's 2 for their tutor, who they see twice a week. And she always is so thankful for the weaving when I give it to her. And so she'll get 2 of them as well. So there's 6 left. And then I gifted 2 away. So that's pretty good. I got 8 hand towels out of this, which is really, really good. So that is that. The set was 18 picks per inch, 18 wraps per inch, and they turned out really pretty. Yeah, thanks, Maggie. It's funny that you would say that, Jennifer, because that's what I've heard from pretty much everyone, is that your presence is needed more and more as your kids get older. So my best friend, or one of my best friends, she's actually talked about that a lot. Her son is 18, and she was saying that really from like age 11 onwards, she found the parenting got more and more intense. And she's like, it's just needing to be present. She's like, you need to know what's going on, and our house is quite small, which I'm actually really thankful for now, because she made this really great comment about when your house is small, because their house is even smaller than ours, and they have 3 dogs and 2 cats and 2 teenagers, but she was like, because the house was smaller, because they talked about moving to a bigger home and making more room for all of their animals, and the teenagers. She's like, you can hear them on the phone, and you can hear when their cell phones go off, it's right there on the table, and you can see the text, and you can hear about all of the stuff that goes on. And she's like, and when they're gaming and stuff, they're right there. And I thought that was a really interesting comment. So my Advent stole. This is the Advent stole. Let me move over a little bit. So this is finished. It's all cleaned up. Everything is trimmed. To fix the skips, Wendy, you just get a needle and the thread that is part of that area. And you just weave through. So there's a couple of skips on this towel here. And so the skip was in the warp, sorry, because the weft missed those. So you just weave through about an inch above and an inch below, and then you just trim it up, and then you trim the skip. So, and then I'll rewash them. So I probably should have done it before I hemmed them, but I actually didn't realize there were quite so many until I was actually hemming. So, c'est la vie. So this ended up coming out beautifully. It's quite large. This is washed and fulled. I washed it in the wool wash on my in my washing machine, and then I fold it in my dryer on the wool cycle, which actually seems to work really, really well. It's actually why I bought the washer and dryer. It's a Miele, and they're stacking because, again, we don't have a lot of room. And my mom was really negative about getting a stacking washer and dryer. She's like, you're going to want the size of side-by-sides and blah, blah, blah. And our house doesn't really have room for side-by-sides, even though that's what we had before. What I really wanted was the European wool wash and the wool dryer setting, because Katrina had them. I wanted to be like Katrina. And I just knew that she was so happy with them. And so a little bit of extra money was worth it to get that washer and dryer. It is hard to wash our king size duvet, but it's not the end of the world. It is still a front loader, but they stack, which is part of what I wanted. So if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about why we chose what we chose, I'm happy to chat with you in the Slack channel. So I didn't twist the fringe. I left it just hanging. I might go back and twist it in the future, but I really liked the look of it. I just liked the look of the hand spun. This is Columbia Dorset, and these were all of my hand spun Advent skeins. I do have a little bit of the yarn left, and I think it was Dagmar who is here today. Had suggested folding it into a triangle. And it's funny because that's actually how I've been kind of looking at it and watching it on the dress form. And I really love the look of it when it's in the triangle. In terms of the weaving, I forgot to grab these before. I'm sorry, you guys. This is all I have left. That's it. So I have just this little bit of all these colors left. Everything else is used up. And I thought that was actually really great. That's pretty good. I'll probably use these up in little bits and pieces. And then in the meantime, that's it. So hem stitch top and bottom. This was Huck lace, my first time doing Huck. I think it worked out really well. It adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of interest. I think plain weave would have been fine too. I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And actually what I really like about this, we're not going to have time for community participation today, you guys, so we'll do that next time. Isn't that lovely with a shawl pin? It's like a big blanket. And you can wear it on the front or the back. And of course, those blanket shawls have been so popular lately. But how much fun is that? Just to curl up with a good book or spin with, because this won't get in your way with the spinning. I could actually spin no problem. Makes me feel like one of those women on the Scottish moors, for hundreds and hundreds of years before we had modern times, how they would just cozy up in these haps. And I get it. It's so warm. It's lovely. And then I've actually made some progress on my forager vest. This has been sitting on my dress form since March of 2020. I started it for Fibers West because I wanted something with really big pockets when I was teaching. And then I just never finished it. So last weekend I put the bias on the front and I hemmed it. And now all I have to do is finish off the sleeves. So I have to finish this side. It's all pinned and ready to go. I just have to finish stitching it. I actually ended up finishing this off by hand. Everything I did on the machine I didn't like, and so I ended up doing hand stitching and folding over the bias on the armhole and the front and doing it by hand. So it's invisible, but it creates a much nicer line, and I think this is actually going to be really lovely to wear. Once it's done, I can see myself wearing this a lot. And actually it was Kelly who lives locally to me. I don't think she's in the chat today, but she made one. Her and I were chatting about it at that time. And she finished hers and I loved it. And it kind of lit a bit of a fire under my butt to get it done. And I thought, I'm going to get it done before Fibers West would have been this year. I'm not sure what's going on with Fibers West this year, but I'm going to get it done. So I just have to do the last armhole. I might even do it tonight if we watch a movie as a family. Yeah, the giant pockets is what sold me on this. And this was supposed to be a muslin. So I actually have fabric to make one like for real, but I don't know if I'll ever finish it. So at least I have something. We don't have time for queries and explorations today because we talked so much about yarn today, which is exactly why we're all here. So I am happy to do that next week. The one thing I will say, however, though, is for February, our giveaway is the try it on tubing. So I'll be sending that out to somebody. So if you're not on Ravelry, you can comment here on YouTube, or if you're on Ravelry, you can go to the episode thread. The link is here. I'll throw it in the show notes. And just tell us about your garment fitting issues. There have been some great ones thus far. So thank you so much to those who have shared already. And thank you for all the compliments on the stole. I don't know what else to call this. I'm just calling it my Advent blanket, but it's not really a blanket. So I'll have to measure it and see what the size actually is. I know I wound a 2.5 yard warp. I didn't lose too much in the finishing because I left the fringe, is it 5 inches or 6 inches? I feel like it's 5 inches for the fringe. So yeah, and I finished the fringe after I've washed and folded it. So I trimmed it up with my rotary cutter afterwards. So is it better to weave with your yarn single or should you ply it first? You know, it really depends on what you want to do and what your purposes are. This is a 2-ply, but it really depends on what you're doing. There's a lot of old thoughts out there and like old ideas about, like, there was a whole thing for a while about like you shouldn't wash your yarns before you weave with them, and there's all sorts of ideas out there, but it really depends on what you're doing, what your purposes are. So it's a happy Zan, that's amazing. It's a happy Advent pseudo hap. I like that too. That's something I would totally say, a pseudo hap. So thank you so much for being here today, you guys. We've had a nice long show. We've had a really good chat and a good catch up. Would like to watch a tutorial on how to fit a garment as it's being knitted other than swatching. I have no idea. Oh, Julie, great question. Okay, we can talk more about that, about changing things as you go. That was actually the last thing I was going to share with you guys, if you don't mind hanging on for just a minute longer, because we've got queries and explorations, so I need to be aware of the time. I just tried this on this morning. It fits like a glove. It's perfect. This is progress on my shifty. So I wasn't too happy with the transition to the blue. I was kind of looking at it going, oh, I don't know. But once I tried it on, it actually works quite well. It's funny how we get hyper focused on something when we're actually knitting it. But once I had it on, it actually works quite well. So it's kind of glaringly obvious when it's in the knitting. But then when I put it on, it actually worked quite well. So I'm at that point now where if I was not making a if I was making the cropped version, I would be starting the ribbing, but I'm making mine a proper length sweater because I just don't wear cropped sweaters. So this is, I've got a few more inches to go. I'm at 13 inches right now for the body and I need to go a few more inches. So just for my long torso, we've talked about that in the past. My gauge for this is so different from the pattern. I've had to modify it right from the get-go. So that might be a really good thing to talk about next show. So I'm getting there with my shifty. I do need to finish spinning up the rest of the pink because I won't have enough for the arms. So I need to get on that this week. So in all my spare time, I'll work on that. That I think will be like my priority at the wheel. So now I need a shifty. Oh, Nicole, you're hilarious. We're always knitting the same thing. There's a few of us that have very similar tastes, so we're always knitting the same stuff. So have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're here locally, I hope you get outside and enjoy some of this sun. Queries and Explorations starts next, and I will be starting that that meeting in just a couple of minutes. So until next time, everyone, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy weaving, happy dreaming. I'll see you guys same time, same place next weekend. Bye, everyone.